Well, liberal media has ignored the train attack because it doesn't fit the narrative. A horrifying murder in North Carolina last month is only now surfacing, happened on August 22nd, thanks to social media, only because alternative outlets have really forced this issue. 23-year-old Ukrainian woman, Irina Zarutska, was stabbed to death while riding the train in the liberal city of Charlotte, North Carolina. You can watch the guy behind her, of course, pulls out a knife, slashes her right in the head, into the artery, a fatal blow, which was a completely unprovoked attack. She wasn't bothering anybody. She was just riding the train. He pulls out a small pocket knife and stabs her in the neck, severing her carotid artery. And then, of course, she was gone, dead. It's absolutely gut-wrenching to watch this. It's horrifying, but what's almost as disturbing, you won't find this story. Actually, CNN finally, just right before our show, finally reported this story. It happened August 22nd. The New York Times, the Washington Post, any of the other so-called media, legacy media or mainstream media outlets wouldn't report this story. Not a single headline, nothing. Like they've completely ignored this story. End Wokeness published this and found out. Just go to the Associated Press's website, do a search for George Floyd. You'll get 74,000 results. Type in the Ukrainian woman's name, Irina Zarutska, and you'll get 0. A woman killed by this black thug. 0 results. Can't talk about it. Go to the New York Times website. Search for Irina Zarutska. 0 results. Matthew Van Swoll posted this. Elon Musk retweeted it. Here's a list of all the news networks who have not covered the Charlotte, North Carolina story. New York Times, CNN now finally just a few minutes ago did. Washington Post, MSNBC, NPR, USA Today, Reuters, Axios, ABC News, PBS. Every single one of them wrote stories on Daniel Penny. Do you get it yet? He says. So now you ask yourself, the real question is why? Imagine if the roles were reversed. If a white man with a history of violent crime, who'd been arrested 14 times, murdered a young black woman in cold blood on public transit. It would dominate the front pages. It'd be all over CNN. CNN's Abby Phillips would host a whole panel discussion about racism in America. And it's the greatest stain in America is racism. There would be marches. There would be hashtags and wall-to-wall media coverage of this. But in this case, silence, or in fact, worse than silence, a spinning of this narrative. Axios did write a story about it this morning. Here's their story, though, blaming MAGA influencers rather than the black man who killed a young white lady. Here's their headline, Grisly Charlotte stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message. What's the message from MAGA? That there's too much of it?
So their focus is not on the violence.
Heaven forbid we should focus on the fact that there's too much of it.
Right. Or the victim, which you would think, she ticks a box. They care about Ukrainians. They still do. So you at least would think that would get her some kind of sympathy or outrage something like that.
And photos surfaced today of her in her bedroom, like just on social media where she's just hanging out in her bedroom. She's got a big Black Lives Matter poster hanging in her bedroom. You think that maybe the liberal media would have been like, hey,
it's one of us.
Yeah.
She's
one of us.
She's one of us. No, instead, it's if you care about this, you are an extremist.
So here's the Axios subheadline here. Here's their, what do you call this, a byline? I don't know what you would call this, but their summary of their article says, the gruesome video of the fatal knife attack on Irina Zarutska on a light rail car in Charlotte, North Carolina is drawing attention from MAGA influencers seeking to elevate the issue of violent urban crime and accuse mainstream media of undercovering shocking cases.
But are those things true?
That's all. Both of those things are true.
Was there a violent urban crime? Yes.
Yes.
There was. Do we know if it's an epidemic? Well, we should be looking for that. That's a worthy question of answering.
Across many cities in the United States of America. Go ahead, Philip.
I was going to say, well, compare this to the. I'm sure you remember the stabbing on the Portland train, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where there was a white guy that was harassing a couple of I believe they were Muslim women, and some guys stepped in to get the guy off of him, and like he ended up stabbing him and killing one of the guys. And it was like a big hero story, and they stepped up to this racist and all that stuff. Was that MAGA driven as well, or I'm just trying
Apparently.
I'm trying to figure out what boxes to tick.
When can we care? Can you just give us a Venn diagram or something?
Axios, can you let us know, like, when is it okay for us to call attention to this? And by the way, it's not just MAGA influencers. It's anyone who gives a rat's ass about their cities across the United States. We're not MAGA on this show. We're independent.
But to if they're trying to hit you with MAGA, right? So if you don't want to be labeled MAGA, you're supposed to say, this is fine. This is cool. I'm not worried about this at all. It happened. It doesn't happen a lot. It's one of those things.
Gray Sky Media says, hey, Redacted is just reporting about this, so how are they any better? Well, we also didn't have a show all weekend, and we haven't had a show since Thursday, and this just surfaced over the weekend. So we didn't learn about this until it happened this weekend, or where actually this video started surfacing online. So we didn't even know about this story. But we've been covering the violent crime in Chicago. But of course, that's part of the MAGA message about violent crime. So this happened on August 22nd. Why wasn't this covered on any of the national media? Why didn't CNN? Why didn't CNN, who has a headquarters in the South, feel the need to cover this? They don't have any report. Where are the local news stations? Like in Charlotte, North Carolina, and liberal Charlotte, North. Can you believe that I'm saying that North Carolina is now a liberal state, like liberal Charlotte, North Carolina, run by a liberal government there? So all the silence tells you everything you need to know, totally ignoring the victim, totally ignoring how whites are disproportionately attacked by black people across the country. Why? Hey, that's not racist. That's just a fact.
Well, that's who whites are victimized up by. But the largest victim group is blacks.
Well, black on black, of course,
yes.
100%.
We should make that clear. We absolutely care about that too.
Yeah. But the mainstream media doesn't seem to care at all about that.
Nope.
And they'll call you a racist for calling out that, why are so many blacks killing so many blacks? You're racist. Okay. Oh, I'm just telling you what the facts are. That's not racist. It's simply the facts. By a 6-to-1 ratio, whites are violently attacked by blacks. Can you talk about that, or is it you're racist? Oh, but you can't say that because then you'll have then they'll jump all over you. But friend of the show, Kasayan Asiedu is a brilliant man. He nailed it when the mayor even said we can't talk about this because of the thug's mental illness. Listen to Kaizen.
Our empathy keeps getting used to excuse evil, and it's literally killing us. Yesterday, I showed you how liberal media ignored a black man murdering a white Ukrainian woman and the racial double standard in reporting. Today, I saw the mayor's statement. She called this a tragic situation that sheds light on problems with society's safety nets. Said the killer has long struggled with mental health and suffered a crisis. Said we shouldn't villainize those who struggle with mental health, and that mental health disease needs to be treated with the same compassion as cancer. There was no mention of the killer's criminal record. This is a textbook emotional argument. When someone does evil, we get told to be empathetic. Emphasis is placed on systemic issues outside of their control, rather than the factors within their control. We're lectured about not villainizing them. We get told to call them unhoused instead of homeless, changing the terms instead of fixing the problem.
Exactly. So it's racist to point out that this guy was arrested 14.
You can't be upset about this.
You're not allowed to be upset because he had a history of mental illness. You're not allowed to be upset about this.
Or you're stigmatizing the killer, which we must not do.
I don't care if he's white, black, brown. I don't give a rat's ass. If he's been locked up 14 times like this guy, take a look. He's been arrested 14 times. And that's the woman that was killed. 14 times you let him out. Is it racist to point out that the judge who let him out might have also been profiting from letting these mentally ill criminals back on the street? Oh, yeah, maybe that's a part of the story they won't tell you. Here she is, Teresa Stokes, the judge. She's also apparently moonlighting as the director of operations at a taxpayer-funded Second Chance Services, allegedly, a mental health and addiction clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. So do you guys see where this is going? She lets him back out on the street with court-mandated services at a clinic that she runs called Second Chance Services, which are paid for by taxpayers of North Carolina. So that's her resume there. She's also a magistrate judge and director of operations at Second Chance Services. So you see, she's a judge also currently working at this clinic or overseeing it. How is this not a conflict of interest, by the way? The court is a feeder program, it turns out, that lets judges like Stokes profit off of these criminals, or these clinics profiting off of these criminals. We don't know yet how much money she's made off of it. So don't put him in jail, just put him in your clinic. Let him back out on the streets. That needs to be investigated right now. Harmeet Dillon at the DOJ just announced they are investigating the city and whether this judge used any sort of race-based merit decision system to let him out. Like, hey, lock up the white people, let this guy out so he can run free and then go into one of our clinics. Elon Musk just tweeted this. Let's change the law. Between now and then, name and shame the DAs and judges who enable murder, rape, and robbery. But especially shame those who funded the campaigns of DAs and judges. That will make the biggest difference, he says. So, thoughts, concerns?
I don't have a knee-jerk reaction to that. I want to think that through. I do know that in J. Christian Adams' book, he talked about how the Department of Justice regularly would go and, sue cities that they thought were over-victimizing black people, and the cities would just fold because it was a Department of Justice case, and they thought, well, this will be expensive to be sued by the government. So then the DOJ would mandate that these cities donate to these liberal institutions. So it basically was like a wealth transfer to, say, the NAACP or these homeless shelters. And this has been a scheme that's been going on for a really long time. How complicit are these judges? It's worth looking into. I think that we need a real investigation into why that's allowed. Are they actually, is it wealth transfer into these liberal institutions? Because it happened ad nauseum and it was really expensive for the taxpayers during the Obama years.
Well, good point. And that's what Harmeet Dillon is looking into. So is there, he's arrested. I have a knee-jerk reaction. This guy's arrested 14 times and he's allowed to go back out on the streets. And now, I'm going to hold this judge accountable. This judge is accountable for this man being free on the streets and killing a woman. 14 times. The system failed her. The system failed her family. And he should have been locked up. And he shouldn't have been allowed to flow back money so taxpayers are footing the bill for him to go to some sort of mental health clinic. Yeah,
I guess what bothers me is I want to think through what is this tactic that Elon Musk is saying, name and shame these judges. Would it work? A lot of these are elected. If they are elected, vote them out.
Well, I don't want any kind of violence against any kind of judges. We saw that against the Supreme Court judges and stuff. I don't want anything like that.
Right. This is what's giving me pause about it.
But Harmeet Dillon at the DOJ investigating where this money is flowing from, and two, I absolutely want that.
Sure.
So we'll keep her
quite like her. I have
big
confidence.
Fan. She's
sure.
What if that sore throat and that fever that you got last night didn't mean that you have to miss work or spend all day at an urgent care clinic? Well, instead, you could walk into your cabinet, you could open up your medical emergency kit from the wellness company, match your symptoms to the doctor's recommended guide, and then start treatment immediately. This is not a first aid kit. This is a mini urgent care right in your home. We have one of them right up in our medicine cabinet. Hand to the heavens, right in our medicine cabinet. We keep it for just such a reason. Because inside you'll find real prescriptions for over 39 conditions like COVID, strep throat, pneumonia, urinary tract infections, and more. No waiting rooms, no pharmacies, no jumping online with a doctor doing a telemedicine visit just to confirm that you've got this sore throat and fever and all these other things. You have it right in your house, right when you need it. Every home should have one of these. And ordering is simple. At checkout, you'll just complete a short intake form and a licensed doctor will review and they will fill your prescriptions. And your kit arrives in about a week. It's that simple. Be prepared. Save yourself some time. Save yourself some money. The medical emergency kit puts urgent care in your hands. Don't let illness catch you off guard. Order your kit right now by heading to twc.health/redacted and use the code redacted to save up to $45 off plus free shipping. Again, go to TWC, that's the wellness company, .health/redacted. And kits are available to U.S. residents only. So, hey, I don't know if you guys saw, the French government has just collapsed. About 2 hours ago, the French government collapsed, and now they are demanding impeachment or the resignation of Emmanuel Macron. The entire country will be brought to a standstill basically in the next 2 days. Protests erupting. I just heard from sources a few minutes ago saying it's about to get really bad. And where they are in Paris, it's getting bad. People are taking to the streets to demand change. Listen.
What we did today, i.e. overthrow a government, is a victory for the popular mobilization during the summer. In 2 days, we will have a major movement. Tomorrow, we will ask for impeachment of Macron. The problem for the country is Mr. Macron. The day after tomorrow, we will be in the streets to block the country's economy, to say this is enough.
So the government collapsed following the defeat of Prime Minister Francois Bayrou in a no-confidence vote held this morning. Bayrou, who had served for just 9 months, secured only 194 votes in favor, 364 against, which was all about the budget specifically. So the French government opened their borders, allowed illegal immigrants to pour into that country, totally destroying that country, by the way. Thought it would be a good idea then to, at the same time that's happening, propose an austerity package so that the French people would have to face tax hikes basically in order to cover all of the amounts of criminals and immigrants that have poured into the country to support them.
It makes me incredibly sad. The
Can you imagine?
hardworking people of France are stolen from every day, and the government makes their life harder and harder. Their most beautiful city has turned into an armpit, and this is a tax on the working class. It continues, and it's Les Miserables right in front of our faces.
Yeah. So is it shocking that the people wouldn't want an austerity package? Like, hey, you're going to increase our taxes, but you're going to cut spending. And also you're going to eliminate 2 public holidays. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you close your borders? Why don't you stop funding a war in Ukraine? Just a few ideas. No. So this is why the government's collapsing. It's not going to work. So Bayrou is out. He's scheduled to resign tomorrow. Then President Emmanuel Macron now faces the urgent task of appointing a 5th prime minister in just less than 2 years. But this is like too little too late for this country. The people have had enough. People across France are already taking to the streets to demand change. So will Macron be out? And will Macron's husband be out as well?
Well, the CDC is warning about an endemic of Chagas disease, and the media has picked it up with mad hysteria. If you haven't seen it already, you're gonna. Here's the CDC's announcement from this study of cases over the last few months. Is it time to be hysterical? Well, let's put some perspective on this. Chagas is a parasitic infection caused by a certain type of bacteria. It's more common in animals than humans, but it can cause heart problems if you do get it as a human and as an animal. Now, first of all, note the timing on this, because in March of this year, March of 2025, The Lancet published this. They're saying we really need a vaccine for Chagas but it's really hard to do because there are 6 main groups of DTUs with this type of disease and various severity. But 2 things. There are successful treatments with this. If your dog were to get it, the vet would not even freak out. There are human antiparasitics that we can take too. Ivermectin has been shown to be effective against this type of bacteria in mice. Also, this paper, if you read it, is calling for vaccine trials on poor people, but notes that it could infect people with heart inflammation. Now, it is admitting here, if you read it, that therapeutic vaccines would be tested on poor rural populations in Latin America, okay, because that's where the disease burden is high. But they also acknowledge that some of these participants will have heart inflammation, and stimulating their immune system with a vaccine could make that worse. In other words, they want to trial an experimental vaccine on the poorest and sickest patients, even though we already have effective drugs. So what will they do with that? Well, what they're saying is, we know this could be dangerous, but we really want a vaccine, even though we already have therapeutics. And in order to get that vaccine, we want the WHO to declare that Chagas is an endemic. Well, the WHO has not done that yet, but the CDC did it. They did it on cue. So that timing is very curious, right? Did they need to do it? Well, the CDC is not saying that we have increased cases of Chagas. What they mean by an endemic, and it's interesting that I'm more curious about the word endemic than what Chagas actually is, because of COVID, which was called a pandemic long before the numbers justified that. And then we learned that confirmed cases was confirmed in immeasurable ways or unreliable ways. So when they say endemic, they mean that it's at a baseline level. It is established in a community and it kind of stays there at expected levels. But note what the CDC is saying. They're not saying we see more. They're saying they may have observed increasing evidence, but they don't have more cases. So why are they saying this? It's normal. It's at normal levels. So it's an endemic. And the media runs with hysterics. That's weird, right? So it's worth remembering this when they invite us to panic, which they are doing now. Humans do get it. Now, look how the Los Angeles Times is covering this. They're saying that between 70 and 100,000 Californians may have it, and we don't know until they get a heart attack or stroke. That's a lie. I'm going to show that to you in a second. And also, we don't know the case numbers because it's not a reportable disease in California, only in 2 counties, Los Angeles and San Diego. Do they have to report it? So we literally don't know. They're going off the cuff. Okay. And again, there are treatments and they're scaring us. What they said, if we could put that LA Times screen back on, they're saying most people don't know until they have a heart attack or stroke. That's not true. There are symptoms of this. You can get fever, fatigue, swollen lymph nodes. You actually have to be bitten by a bug and then you're sick after. So that's kind of a clue. You would have digestive problems. It is not a phantom disease with 0 signs. Remember during COVID, we were talked about asymptomatic carriers, that kind of thing. That should sound now like a familiar scare tactic. And it is. And again, there are anti-parasitic drugs like benznidazole, and also the Wellness Company, which is one of our show sponsors, although this is not a sponsored segment, says that mebedazoles, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Mebendazole, yeah.
And ivermectin can also kill parasitic worms and has been shown to be an effective treatment in Chagas in mice.
Yeah, a bunch of people in our chat are like, yeah, ivermectin would take this thing out, no problem.
We do have data that happens in animals. We don't have data that it happens in, or I have not seen it in humans. And if you have, please do send it. But again, ivermectin was a reliable medicine before that we weren't allowed to know about. So can we know about this now while we're still allowed to know about it? And these drugs that the Wellness Company is saying are not actually mainstream medicine, but they do have research behind them. So again, since we already know that these drugs have been used, it's worth keeping that in mind as the hysteria about Chagas heats up. Now, one more thing,
it
and is it Chagas?
I think it's pronounced horse paste.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, horse paste. Okay. Now this is just me being hysterical. I'm going to admit this to you and you decide if you want to join me in this, because the one thing that does cause me concern is when the CDC says where they find this disease the most is in companion animals, especially dogs, which is true because dogs are susceptible to this. But your vet wouldn't be concerned about this. They would just give you an anti-parasitic. The fact that they're saying, this is what gets my spidey sense up, because remember in China, they tried to kill dogs because of COVID and hamsters and things like that. What they're saying is that they need to do advanced studies on domestic animals. And I'm thinking that this may eventually give them license to say, oh, you know, if your dog has Chagas, this is some kind of endemic. We need to take your dog, that kind of thing. There's no indication they would do this. It's just what scares me when the government says here that they want to do some advanced study on animals. And again, your vet could treat this, right? So why? So look for symptoms. That's one thing you can do. Keep in mind, there are curatives. If you want to panic, as the media invites you to do, you can. I'm not gonna, but let me know how you're gonna react to this. I just want you to have the data now that it's out there.